Welcome, everybody. My name is Chris Lindholm. If you haven't met me, I'm the superintendent here in Cook County Schools. We're glad that you're here. Tonight is an informal, informational meeting. If you need to step out, please feel free to do that. We're fortunate that the teachers had a meeting right before this, the staff, and so we get the leftover treats. So make sure you grab a cookie if you want one, some chips, some salsa. Lacey was kind enough to line those up for our staff, so thank you, Lacey. This is an exciting time as we take a look at the input from our community, from our students, from our staff, and try to make sense of next steps for Cook County Schools. And leading that process and helping us is ICS, and this is Natalie Hopp, and our architecture firm DSGW, John and his team. So I'm going to step off the stage. I do want people to know that we are recording the presentation part of this one. So if possible, try to remember your questions until the end, and I can hit stop on the recording, and then we can have a little bit of give and take after that. But hopefully that'll be concise enough that we can publish that publicly. And that's the microphone there, John and Natalie, so make sure you're talking.
Oh, sure. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. It's important because we've been working really hard on this for the last several months. We did the demographic study. We did an educational adequacy, comparing what's happening in the building to what's happening, what MDE's guidelines are. And we also did a facility assessment. So we went through each room of the building, from the roof down, and the rooms, going through what needs to be done as far as deferred maintenance and those kind of things too. And then we did a lot of listening sessions, and you'll find out more about them and see what other listening sessions were done. But this is just part of bringing that back around. Now we gathered that information, and then we went to work and brought on DSGW through an RFP and trying to put those puzzle pieces together to make the solution of what could be the best outcome for what we've heard, right? So we're just gathering, we're just bringing it forward now. The board has some decisions to make on whether they want to move forward to a referendum, and if they do, how much, how many questions, all those kind of things. So tonight is really just bringing back all the things we've heard, and we'll walk you through that process too. John and Emily and Kat have been instrumental from now taking that information to what you're gonna see tonight, and it's gonna be mostly them. I'll chime in and then we'll ask questions at the end or answer your questions.
So thank you for coming. We'll do it this way. There. Well, that's gonna be a little bit slower. So as Natalie said, last fall, there was a lot of dialogue, a lot of work done to kind of get an understanding of basis or to start the process. So groups that were met with to gather that initial input, we call them stakeholder groups, school board staff, coaches, students, etc., community members, Grand Portage community via Zoom, and then some open community meetings as well. And that was really listening sessions to kind of get an understanding of what the desires were for the community. Why that's doing that. Anyway. Interesting. So these are just some of the questions that were asked at that point. I'm not going to go through each one, but it really was questions to kind of spur the conversation, if you will, and get people thinking about the process.
All right, so when we take a look at it holistically, you're looking at the internal stakeholders and the external stakeholders, and you're looking for commonalities, and usually they rise up pretty quickly. And so I won't read them all either, but some of the things we heard, and you'll see this slide later on, and how we, took to solutioning some of these ideas, but talking about, more commons area, more multi-purpose space. Security was a huge thing that we heard from a lot of people. Your universal bathrooms was another thing, and then a larger fitness center, gym space, track. There's a big robust track team here, and there's no track, right? So that's part of it. Baseball, softball doesn't have any place to play. That's a Title IX issue. So storage comes up a lot, and you know, it's not anything real fun to talk about, if you'd rather be talking about spaces that really influence kids, but you need it, right? You need it everywhere, and you talk about HVAC updates in the building, so all those things were talked about, and then internal stakeholders, you know. Those are the people in the building, and they wanted more student parking, more classroom space, those kind of things, and externally, you know, talked about where are the outdoor learning spaces, or what's happening with them in the alternative learning space. So this is a slide that you will see later as a solution.
When, after the first of the year, then we became part of the team through an RFP process. Fortunate enough to be selected to participate, and we start that whole process kind of all over again. We start meeting with, we take that initial basis information. And we scheduled meetings with some of the key, areas that were identified in that list that Natalie pointed out. So we met with food service administration, folks regarding the welcome area, the common space, you know, how this whole center area needs to work together. The media center, and then the athletic piece, were kind of the main components that we gathered some additional thoughts from. And it started to give us some understandings, a little more detail of some of the things that, we're aware, you know, those groups were aware of that needed to be addressed. We're in the food service, the kids cafeteria right now. One basic thing is the serving lines and the dishwash areas don't have secure, coiling shutters to close them off. So that limits the use of this space after hours. Getting those gated off so that this space can then be opened up for community use, meetings, that type of thing is a desire, a need. Looking at things like hand washing, a lot of, you know, there's no hand washing directly in, so kind of thinking of the student flow as they're coming in for lunch period. Put a hand washing sink right in line so that they have to go right by it, as opposed to kind of funneling everybody through the restroom areas. Acoustics, noise control, you can kind of tell it's a live space in here, so that's something that we're gonna be looking at, or would be included in a future renovation. Welcoming, opening it up, you know, creating more of that commons feel, so it's not so compartmentalized. Administration, a lot of input, covers around safety and security, as it should. Every school project needs to have, or has that as their forefront to their thoughts, whatever they do. Looking at the student parking and flow, all those types of things, event parking, you know, where the buses go, intersections with student in driving their cars and all that fun piece. And then also thinking about, you know, outdoor learning areas or creative ways to utilize the grounds a little bit more effectively. You have some of that already, you know, with the space off of the or behind the art center. Maybe there's a way to improve that and make that more of a learning or a outdoor classroom, if you will. Uh-oh.
No.
Cancel.
I can't do it up there. I'll have to press the screen. Screen.
Just shut down. And then some of the things like universal restrooms, improving not only from updating because of their age, but also looking at privacy, security. You know, restrooms are a big problem, bullying, in schools for bullying. So a lot of districts are really looking at that and saying, what can we do to limit that? And part of it is providing private rooms, and we'll talk about a little bit more on the plan, but opening more of the sink area to a shared space, if you will. Adding things like family restrooms, mother's rooms, that type of thing as support as well. One of the big areas is the kind of that center core space, the entry commons, the media center, the cafeteria commons, if you will. What things can we do to kind of open that up so it has more of a welcoming feel when you walk in, visually connecting everything, versus what you see traditionally as, you know, compartmentalized spaces. Thinking about where can the administrative office support and also monitor those spaces, monitor the coming and going into the building, that type of thing. Community education access, setting up, student mental health support, nurse space, counseling, Anishinaabe Center, kind of creating more of a centered common area so that it's more accessible for all students. Recognizing need for some areas for access privately, that type of thing. And then the last piece, the athletic, the need for looking at the gym use, the pressures on the current gym use that we have with FIAD for athletics, practicing, those are classroom type spaces during the day. They need to double as the potential for athletic use as well, so that you can reduce some of that practice overlap times and the late nights that occur. Storage space is huge, huge need. Locker rooms, currently you got old locker rooms all over the place, so you got a game. Whole building is open because the team's gotta go use the locker room across all the way to the other building. Outdoor track, as Natalie said, big track program, what does that look like as far as supporting that enthusiasm for the program that is there? With that is, football field, natural or artificial turf to maximize the season use of those facilities. Locker sizes and I did talk about that. Locker rooms, updating the locker rooms, shower spaces, but updating them so that they have private shower stalls, private bathrooms, that type of thing. Fitness and weight room, looking at, can we move that so that it's more of a secured, or in a spot where it can be accessed during summer and evening hours and limit the access to the rest of the building. And I think that's mainly a lot of it. The softball piece, how can we accommodate that to satisfy Title IX requirements? Currently, you're not, that's one of the deficient areas. Okay. So, in late February, we held a student career work session. Mike Lavager is one of my partners at DSGW. He's a enrolled band member at Turtle Mountain in North Dakota. He's one of 20+ registered architects in the country, native architects. So he spoke, and he's done this a number of places, nationally and regionally, and spoke to the Anishinaabe student population to talk about careers in architecture and engineering, and to encourage and open up eyes to those opportunities that do exist. And that is something that, it's something that translates to all students as far as opportunity. We like to promote our profession and the excitement that can bring for their futures. And then we had a Grand Portage work session, committee work session. I'm gonna let Emily speak a little bit to that.
So that's a fun thing that we like to do to incorporate everybody if we can, and it's just more of getting together, talking, really looking high level on what do you want your school to look like. A lot of it is very conceptual, thinking about, I don't know, textures, what inspires you, colors, and there are specific spaces in there, but just really creating a collage and talking to one another as to what it could be.
It's kind of a sampling of what would happen for all communities and all stakeholder groups post-referendum, once we actually get into that process of developing the design further. Some of the things that came out from that also align with some of the previous things. Security, site security, building security, safety is first and foremost on everyone's mind. Incorporating culture, so whether it's native culture, Grand Portage culture, Grand Marais culture, student culture, staff culture, it's all cultures to become now one new Cook County school culture. And everyone has kind of that equal share in supporting that. And then a lot of the detail things that we heard too of you know, hubby learning nooks, language labs, you know, and then some of the aesthetic pieces that come into play that start to frame our understanding moving further into the design process.
So these are some examples that came from that session that the community worked on together in groups. And we look for a lot of the commonalities and point them out and just want it to be more of an open discussion of why certain things were chosen. What about it, and just really kind of getting a baseline for what we should be gearing our design toward.
I'll say kids are the experts at this, these opportunities.
Yes.
So digging into the plan a little bit, and just want to point out after the presentation too, just informal, we have other boards printed if you would like to look a little closer. As you can kind of see on the boards, you know, test fit, concept and information. Really, we've taken all this information and developed the pieces and parts for the puzzle. And maybe not all of they're identified yet. There may be more pieces added, there may be pieces adjusted or moved. But at this point, it gives us a good feel for addressing and responding to all the input that's been gathered up to this date, and at least identifying a square footage. That's all, square footage is what relates to cost, so that we can kind of move to that next step. What the colors mean for your reference is the red would be addition, square foot addition to the building. So we've got the front area, there'll be a student service administrative addition, would incorporate a new secure entry, new welcome face to the school, if you will. The back area would be the Phi-Ed gymnasium, fitness room, locker. We do have some building service storage, and I'll be covering a little bit more detail on some larger plans. And then right here is an additional flex classroom. One of the things that is identified that Natalie pointed out through the Department of Ed is the age of the high school is of an age that the classroom sizes are smaller than what is recommended by Minnesota Department of Ed. We can't necessarily just blow out the whole wall and make them bigger. It's not a cost-effective way, but we can add potentially a larger classroom here that can flex for the need for larger classes to move into, you know, do something specific. That location then can become flexibly used as overflow for dining, cafeteria use, evening activities for like the EATS program that utilizes the school, that type of thing. The green, the light remodel, kind of sprinkled all around. So when we start to add square footage, we're moving spaces and functions into that new addition. Well, that starts to free up space within the existing building that we can now reassign. We have a number of these things. And then the light remodel means finish upgrade. So doing some updating with flooring, painting, that type of thing. But the space is conducive to what that reassigned space needs would be. So some of the example areas would be like right here. Currently, we identified those as setting those up to be available for additional classrooms to support elementary. There's some bubble and some population size increases to the elementary that needs to get to a point where they can have those classrooms. The potential to relocate the boardroom up to here opens up this current boardroom in the arts for a potential choir space. Kind of a, you know, not a full-blown choir that you would expect, but at least a starter space for develop that program. Special ed is here. We look at relocating some of the special ed spaces to open this up for potential community ed use. Some of these areas along here, which are conference rooms, we add more conference rooms here. That opens up these as small group flex rooms or special ed spaces. We moved some things around. Currently math is over here. 2 math classrooms exist here. We do some flipping around. Math can then be relocated to here and have 3 in a row, and then consolidate some of the special ed spaces. So it's one of the things that we look for efficiency of, you know, how do we reutilize? Orange color would be a medium remodel. That's where we're getting a little bit more involved with, things like this room is identified right here. So one of the things here we need to address is acoustics. So aesthetically, you know, we think we're gonna wanna keep the wood, aesthetic, because it connects, you know, to this history of the building, et cetera. But there's things we can do to improve the acoustics that's a little bit more beyond paint and floor upgrades, and obviously painting and floor upgrades would still be included in that level. Lighting improvements, that type of thing. Heavy remodel, the yellow areas, that's when we're starting to talk about taking down a wall, you know, removing a wall, changing the configuration of a space. You kind of see a little bit of a highlight here on the yellow. This corner potentially could be opened up. So visually, it's connected to the common area, whether it's completely open or if it's glass. So you can, would have to, or would be factored in relative to the acoustical sound transfer of this noise into that common and vice versa. The restroom areas, these are the existing toilet areas. Those need upgrades just because of their age. At that point, remodeling or reconfiguring them to accommodate the universal restrooms, private toilet stall, private toilet rooms. They're not stalls, they're actual rooms. The sink area is a common space, accessible bathrooms with sinks in them would also be part of the requirement. And then by moving nurse into the addition, it frees up this footprint where we have existing plumbing to add a new toilet, universal toilet bank in this center commons area to support kind of that additional use that we're anticipating in the center area. What it does is it eliminates the need for this old bathroom bank that's kind of a bit of a security challenge trying to manage with students that was way off, you know, on the hallway and kind of out of everyone's sight view. And then one of the big things is kind of in this area is the potential to get a staff. Currently, there's no staff space to all be together, have dinner or have lunch, have private bathrooms, that type of thing. And I'll get to a little larger plan to kind of illustrate those a little better. So within the student service administrative addition, we would be, some of the main components there, as I noted before, is we would provide a new nurse space, provide a new student mental health counseling suite, if you will, that has connection and support from the administrative side. So at K-12 administration and district administration would be consolidated to make it more efficient for workroom use, storage, that type of thing. And then also for site security supervision of the exterior and the entrance. The safe, secure entrance, we'd have like you have now, kind of the security line at the vestibule. Visitors would come in here. They can't get in until they get buzzed into and get checked in at the entrance, and they can't get into the school until they get buzzed into the school. This administrative support provides backup for the nurse. This is the existing north-south hallway that exists, and then this is the connection from that backside for elementary going around from this direction to the nurse, high school, middle school coming into the counseling suites, et cetera. The core of it, and probably the biggest challenge area is the commons piece, you know, the cafeteria, the entry. And it's a little bit hard to kind of illustrate, but right now, just for your frame of reference, this is the corner of the existing media center. And then this is the side of the existing administrative offices. So with the addition, the administration offices can relocate into here. We'd propose opening up that wall with new structure, columns, beams, et cetera, remove the block, concrete block. This becomes your entry commons welcoming area. the Navi resource space that is split into two rooms on this side would then consolidate into this area to be part of that center commons piece. The media center would be opened up so that, I'd say a third of it would be open for, informal seating, small group gathering, that type of thing. But also support as an option for dining, during the lunch hour. I think right now, there's some students that go all the way down to the Arts Center. This would give them an option closer by, more of a spot that's more supervised. The, keeping the book stacks, on this side, but providing a potential, movable wall, security gate, kind of a ball gate feel, if you will, so that during the day, that's open, full access when there's staff and supervision. In the evenings, weekends, or whatever, when the building is open, that could be closed off, so you're protecting the resources there, but then this becomes part of the common space and is available. Behind the media center is reconfiguring that. A lot of that is currently counseling and some of that support staff that would move out into this area. That opens up this for kind of multiple size classrooms for small group learning, collaboration for both students and staff. And then, let's see, talked about this as the classroom addition. I think one of the things that's important to understand is this footprint is on the other side of that wall is the old locker rooms off the elementary gym, kind of underutilized space. Proposal would be is to take that out, remodel it, and create a centered student or a staff resource room for both dining, have private bathrooms, have a mother's room, kitchenette, just space for the teachers to get together. Right now, I think they're all going back to their classrooms to have lunch individual, so. Then the next piece would be adding on the kind of the FIAD and athletic support. So a single gymnasium is what footprint is what is shown here. So the proposed would be a regulation basketball court footprint for reference. Additional storage spaces for equipment. Two new locker rooms with bathroom, private bathroom, shower. And then referee rooms that can provide dual purpose for community use or staff use during the day. If somebody bikes to work, they can use the shower there, have that ability. A mother's room on this side to help support any public activities in the evening. And I think what was the other one? We had just a private restroom. And then the other piece is the fitness area gets moved from here outboard as an addition, so that it's more accessible during after hours and summer use, and allows you to close off or lock off the rest of the building. Here it's a little bit more challenging to try to secure the rest of the building and provide that use. And then adding a little bit of a common space for that, thinking that potentially this could be activity access for, say, a gym or a basketball game or a volleyball game versus, coming in at that entrance and having the whole school open. And let's see what else. Oh, there's a shower. Oh, yeah, building services, need for more just building storage, frees up some other spaces for other uses. Putting the staff space in there, which is currently some FIAD storage. We'd grab some of that square footage for FIAD storage for the elementary gym, loading dock, that type of thing to help the building services function better. And then the existing showers and in the locker rooms to provide the private shower stalls and private bathrooms. On the site, so if you recall kind of the entrance at the gym, one of the things in this whole area, so going back to that list, was discussion about track. being a big program that there is no facilities for. So what this represents is a footprint of a track around the football field. Artificial turf has been discussed relative to expanding the option or the opportunity to utilize the field. You know, with the season changes, you can plow off the turf and have access sooner. When we footprint this, we're kind of implying that we want to look to see if we can push that as far to the east. And there's two reasons. One is it opens up this area as a potential activities parking lot to support both the gymnasium activities and football and track. Try to get cars off the street for those activities a little more safe. What also does too is in 20, 30 years, what's gonna happen next is hard to predict at that point, but it gives you space to add on for additional changes or modifications to the building. Baseball field upgrades, lighting, bleachers, those types of improvements. And then what this is there was discussion about, well, what happens up on Gunflint with further development? Is there any desire or planning that should be considered for a future connection point from that side? It's been discussed, but there's no intent or plan in the budgets to do anything with that at this point. So we go back to this list. That's kind of what's grounding everything as far as the design moving forward. Now we get into, okay, we've identified kind of the puzzle pieces that have square footage attached. That gives Natalie's team the information that they can start applying square foot costs to it to start identifying, well, what's the magnitude of what's going to happen? So right now we're identifying as a potential question number one that would total about 24 million. That covers the large majority of the desired and needed pieces. And this is kind of a list, you know, of those spaces that are represented in that floor plan. And the next one would be looking at drum roll.
There you go.
So question number two, potentially totaling about 9 million, then starts to address some of the site improvements with the track, the turf, the fields, etc. Support spaces that would come along with that football and track field, storage, concessions, etc. Improvements at the Arts Center, things that haven't have been a need for a while but haven't been addressed in post and past referendums. And then another piece that is coming up is consideration for the current bus maintenance shop is old. Maybe now is the time to evaluate, you know, updating that piece as well. Potential third question, 3.5 million, is to add a second station gym. So the plan I showed, I didn't talk about the dash line, but the plan represented one gym station. The dash line would represent a footprint if the community voted to add a 2-station gym, which would be equivalent size to your existing gym.
And then potentially you wouldn't have to use the Wise gym either, so that you could utilize the gyms on campus to take care of all the FIAD needs. And then the Y would have their gym back to use for their members too.
So we're kind of at a point now where all the puzzle pieces have been, you know, mostly identified. Not everything is covered yet, and that's going to flesh out further and further discussions, but it's got us to a point where there's a good understanding and feel for what this could be. So kind of next steps from here are procedural relative to, you know, the board needs to make a decision on what to do. And kind of the next step is a process required by the Minnesota Department of Ed to submit what's called a review and comment. And it basically is Natalie's team would submit all the data, information about the plan, budgets, the cost, etc. And then they respond, sometimes they ask, you know, well, can you give us more information about a certain part of it? Suggest some changes, that type of thing. That's a process that, couple months over the summer, basically, is what that would entail. Mid-May is when the board's kind of considering maybe, getting to a point where they feel comfortable to make that step and, authorize that. All that leads to is a potential referendum, in the fall, November 2024. Leading up to that, or prior to that, would be in the fall, a lot more community information sessions like this, where there's a forum for people to come and learn about the project, learn about the costs, what's included, ask questions, that type of thing. And then a couple things just to think about, post-referendum, is the process then starts kind of all over again, and in a lot more detail, a lot more intensive, a lot more meetings with user groups, you know, community, parents, staff, students, et.cetera. They're all providing support and information to the planning and oversight committee. That is kind of the first group to kind of help the decision-making process, and it's all kind of lined up to provide that support and recommendation to the school board. Ultimately, they'll make any final decisions on expenditures. And what that means is a lot more meetings, collaboration with stakeholders, more input sessions that Emily talked about. You know, this is kind of the fun part. This is where it's real now, right? The referendum passed and it's real. Getting out to the target audience, the community members, parents, et.cetera. Multiple meetings, participation, different formats, and that's a process that's going to take roughly 6 to 9 months. So it takes a little bit of time to do this. Construction potential just for a point of reference could be 1.5 years, roughly 2 years, 2025 to 2027. A lot of it would be based on how you phase work in this school and keep the school operating at the same time. Big challenges to that, but it happens a lot. Well, that's kind of where we are at, and welcome any additional questions.
Comments or anything? Just love to have some feedback.